The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Bristol Legal, where we bring you legal issues that are relevant to you and your local communities. My name is Elizabeth Nowakowski. I am the professor and program chair of the Paralegal and Legal Studies here at Bristol Community College. And on the show today, we have a returning guest, attorney Len Zandrow, who is the executive director of Justice Bridge Legal Center, which is located in New Bedford and Boston. Welcome to the program. Welcome back to the program,
Thank you very
Attorney
much.
Zandrow.
Privileged to be here.
So there's a lot that I want to talk about with you, just to bring our audience up to speed. And as I mentioned, you are the executive director of Justice Bridge. But before we dive into Justice Bridge, I'd like to talk about access to justice, which is obviously that's why Justice Bridge exists. So for the audience that may not know the term, could you explain what access to justice refers to when we hear it?
Well, first of all, again, thanks for having me here. And access to justice is why we exist, why our program exists. And it's the gap that exists between folks who are going through life-changing legal issues and need some representation in court, and oftentimes can't find anyone to help them through that. It's a huge gap that I think people tend to underestimate sometimes. As many as 80 to 90% of the folks who are appearing in court today in Fall River and New Bedford on the South Coast do not have a shepherd to guide them, do not have a lawyer helping them, and they're in court fending for themselves. And
what are some of the most common barriers excuse me, to access to justice that exist? I mean, obviously money is the first thing that comes to mind, but is that still obviously the number one, or?
Money is clearly a concern for folks, and these are huge, life-changing legal issues. It's the right to see your kids, it's the roof over your head, evictions or foreclosures in cases. And oftentimes it's because folks are involved in these financial problems in the first instance, that they can't pay lawyers or can't pay traditional market rates.
And which areas of law are most impacted by this? I mean, we obviously have criminal, we have civil law, and within civil law we have so many different areas. Can you speak a little about that in terms of
Well, on the criminal side, oftentimes you have a right to an attorney. We see that in television programs and movies when the Miranda warnings are given to folks. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. But on the civil side, there is no such right. So even though the consequences of not having an attorney and having to represent yourself and not knowing what evidence is relevant necessarily to what the judge is going to be deciding the case on the basis of the case, or how to best frame your legal issues, that is a huge barrier and a huge difficulty. But people do not have that right on the civil side, in family law and housing law, probate law, a right to counsel the way we do on the criminal side.
So family law, housing, which would be mainly evictions or any dispute with landlords, and the third one you mentioned is probate, which is where someone passes away and there is a issue with the will. It is usually advisable to get an attorney, and sometimes especially when there are issues. So these are the three main areas of law that you have seen where there are access to justice issues. So 80 to 90% of individuals, I just want to repeat it for our viewers, 80 to 90% of individuals specifically in those areas go to court without legal representation. That's incredible. That's awful, if I may say so, because to your point, these are issues that are impacting everyday people's lives, children, families, housing. So let's talk about Justice Bridge and how, before actually we talk about Justice, let's talk about how you got involved with Justice Bridge, because your background is in family law. That's what you've been practicing for many years, if I understand correctly. And tell us how you ended up with Justice Bridge.
Well, my background actually is in appellate law.
Oh, appellate law. I'm sorry.
And,
I'm sorry. I apologize.
I started with clerking after I graduated from law school for a couple of years, and then I went with a large firm and was a partner there for 12 years. And I was a kind of a generalist. I specialized by function. I did a lot of appellate work for a firm in Boston that was involved in a lot of civil litigation. And that actually positioned me well to be the director of this program, being a generalist and knowing a little bit about a lot of different areas of the law. But
can you just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but for our viewers, can you explain what appellate work means?
So that is, after a case has been tried and a decision has been rendered in the trial court, then if someone takes an appeal, they're unhappy with the judgment that entered below, they'll appeal to, in Massachusetts, to the State Appeals Court or to our Supreme Judicial Court or to the First Circuit Court of Appeals if it's a federal case.
And often the individuals would hire a different attorney from the one that they used for the trial, right? Because it's a little of a different kind of practice in terms of writing the appellate brief, and it's a little of a different skill set, right? Would you say that's correct?
It is a different rules of procedure, different judges, obviously, and so the firm that I was with initially, which had a lot of institutional clients, found that it was appropriate to have some specialists in that particular area. So we specialize by function rather than by a particular area of practice.
And by doing appellate work, to what you mentioned earlier, you are exposed to different areas of law because you're not specializing. So I'm sorry if I thought for some reason, I don't know why I thought you did family law, but because of the appellate, it just covers, could be anything, right? Anything from criminal to civil. So let's go back to Justice Bridge. So tell us about Justice Bridge, which is such a phenomenal institution and organization, and tell us how long it's been around, how it came about.
Yes, well, it goes back, Elizabeth, to when I mentioned I clerked for a couple of years at the very beginning of my tenure, and that's where I met Debbie Ramirez, just a wonderful colleague who I retained a friendship with over all the years, and she is now a full-time tenured faculty member at a law school in Boston, and she asked me if I would help build out a business model for an incubator program. And so I became involved over 10 years ago in building out that model, and then just caught the passion and continued on and have been privileged to be the director of the program since its start. And this is our 10th year anniversary. The need is so great, and it is just an opportunity for me to kind of give back in the latter stages of my career to help folks who I was not able to help before when I was with a large firm or with a smaller firm that I helped create.
When you say that you started on a business plan for incubator, which is what Justice Bridge is, and many people may not know what is that referring to. So can you briefly describe the concept of Justice Bridge? It's a nonprofit organization, but how does it work, and what makes it, a great access to justice program?
Well, the goal is access to justice, and so the design is really based on that novel. How can we help as many people as possible, and try to fill the gap? And so when we were creating the program, we thought the best way to do that was to empower startup attorneys who are in need of clients, and also to reach out to prospective clients who would not otherwise have lawyers. And so part of that strategy and part of that foundation was to build a mentor network of experienced attorneys who could help shepherd and guide these startup attorneys on the practical experience that they had gained. Their experience averages 30 to 40 years of legal experience, and we have over 80 mentors in our program, many of whom are retired judges. And they are really the key to the program, because we're utilizing their experience and their skills while also helping train newly minted attorneys who have members of good standing, and they pass the bar, but they're looking to develop their own solo practices. And when I say solo practice, it's really a misnomer, because they're not solo, they're not alone, they're in this network of support. And we've been able to attract over 100 community partners that are referring cases to us, a number of vendors who have given us special discounts, some bar association support as well. And so it's been just a big tent of a lot of folks helping. But the number one sponsor, the number one support is UMass School of Law. They have been fabulous in this context. They are our sponsor. And they're down here, of course, on the South Coast. They're the Commonwealth's only public law school, and they take that public interest focus to heart. They are truly concerned about this access to justice issue. And it's the very tangible, practical aspect of that is the monetary support that they give us, and the support that they've given us continuously in many different ways over these 10 years.
And we will have a different show meeting with the Dean of Law School, so hopefully we can dive into those topics as well a little further. But going back to Justice Bridge, just to reiterate, when you mentioned that Justice Bridge is well positioned to help with access to justice issue, can we dive in a little deeper how that really works? Like what differentiates Justice Bridge from other organizations, nonprofits that provide usually, free legal services to communities? And
well, the goal when we first started actually was to try to analyze the gap, and so to try to figure out where is the need the greatest. And we thought the need would be the greatest in people who fell just above income eligibility for free services, but who could not afford traditional market rates. That those were the people disproportionately who were appearing in court and needing to self-represent, appearing with an attorney. The reality is there's a significant turnaway rate even among folks who are entitled to free. So the issue always is, how can we help people within their modest budgets? Because our attorneys are not paid a salary. They're dependent on their livelihoods, on their income from getting some money from these clients. So, the goal is always utilizing our mentors and the different supports that we have in the program. If there's a willingness to pay something, how can we provide something in return of value and of high impact? And that remains kind of the focus of our program and the way that we do it. One last thing about that is, if you think about our community, these are entrepreneurial risk takers. These are lawyers who, either fresh out of law school or after a few years of experience in the law, have decided, I'm going to go on my own. I like the autonomy of hanging my own shingle and being my own boss. But most of them are graduates of UMass Law, so they've always had that public interest focus, and they're tech savvy. And so, kind of combining, and they have this large mentor support system. So they're kind of ideally situated to be a laboratory, and it is, to try different techniques and to experiment on different approaches and ways to deliver access to justice in these really challenging circumstances. And it's not only, to my mind, an opportunity that we have, owing to kind of who we are and what our community is composed of, but it's an obligation. If not us, who else is able to test drive different concepts, to test drive different techniques, on trying to serve access to justice, to deliver legal services in ways that haven't been delivered before.
Hence the name incubator, I guess. Has this model been replicated across the nation, or how many of such organizations exist nationwide, to your knowledge?
In its height, there were about 70 to 80 law incubators in the country. And that was in the 2014, 2015 period of time, which is the era when we launched. Now there are only, we're not even sure, I just met with a number of directors of the national programs, and I think there are only between 28 and 31 law incubators in the country.
Why do you think that's the case?
And well, part of that is that the incentive for law schools that sponsored a lot of these was, and I hate to sound cynical about it, but it was to kind of pad statistics, hiring statistics, with their immediate graduating class. And if they were able to put them in a law incubator, then they were considered to be full-time employed in the law. And that was a way to provide employment opportunities to recent graduates if they didn't otherwise have such employment opportunities. As the market changed, and as market opportunities were greater for their immediate graduating class, then the incentive was reduced and they began to withdraw their support. That's one of the things that really distinguishes UMass as our sponsor from other programs. Yes, they're interested in placing their immediate graduates. Yes, like any institution, I suppose they'd be interested in their statistics to some degree, but more than anything else, they're interested in access to justice. They're living their motto, pursue justice. They are living that public interest focus that they have. And they're interested in helping their graduates who are going in solo and small firm practices, not just in the immediate graduating class, but in subsequent classes. People who have graduated 5 years ago, 10 years ago, who are now starting their own practices, who need some help and some support and are interested in serving access to justice. They don't fit the model in terms of a placement statistic, but they fit the model for serving access to justice. And that is what they're all about, and that's what we're all about. In that laboratory, we keep trying to help as many people as we can. That includes the lawyers as well as the would-be litigants who are in need of service.
What a great partner to have.
Awesome. They walk the talk.
And
period.
In terms of number of, so you may have said that already. How many attorneys do we on average have at Justice Bridge? If you could speak to that, and how many clients have we served so far at Justice Bridge? And I say we because in full disclosure, I'm on the advisory board of Justice Bridge.
You most certainly are.
That's why sometimes we squeeze in. If you could mention sort of the numbers, and 10 years, that's amazing. Congratulations, you've done an amazing job with the organization. But how many clients? Let's talk the numbers.
Well, I need to do a more amazing job. So we have processed over 15,000 requests in our 10-year history, and we've averaged about 20 lawyers at any given point in time. So when you think about those numbers, you can't help everyone. Remarkably, we've been able to help over 7,000 people, which is wonderful. We help them in terms of representing them in court, in the key areas, in the moments when we can have the most impact. Maybe it's not full representation, it may be limited scope representation. And by that I mean we kind of pick and choose where we can have the most impact. But we've been able to represent or at least consult with and provide guidance and some support to over half the people coming to us. At the same time, we have not been able to help half the people coming to us. And so that's the heartbreaking aspect of the job for me. I'd love to help everybody. And what we're trying to do is to help ever more people. And doing that in developing our website, further provide more resources to people who are approaching us on the front end as they approach us through our website, and then also through the application process with us. And we're also trying to expand our network to people beyond the immediate core of our incubator community, graduates of UMass Law, or folks who are certified in limited scope representation techniques, folks who are serving a modest means client base now, solo practitioners and small firm practitioners, develop cases in a way and the intake process in a way that is, it makes it more efficient and economical for additional attorneys beyond our immediate network to help these folks. That's kind of the vision sort of moving forward. We keep trying in the incubator program that we are with experimenting and evolving to help more people.
And can you speak a little more about the limited scope representation? Because it's a very unique, I know it started a few years ago before pandemic, I believe, right? That's when
about
it was
20
officially,
years ago.
yeah. But it wasn't really, it's been around, but it hasn't been really highlighted as much, I think, until recently, especially with the access to justice really coming to the surface. Can you just explain to our viewers the difference when an attorney is retained for full case versus for for limited scope representation?
Sure. The traditional approach always that people think of is that if an attorney agrees to take the case, you sign a fee agreement with the attorney, they enter their appearance in court, that they're going to be in court for you for all purposes and representing you in every aspect of your case. And unfortunately, when people don't have a lot of money, they have big legal problems, not a lot of money, they might not be able to afford that. So about 20 years ago, the court allowed attorneys to do something that they had not previously allowed them to do, and that is to enter limited appearances. It used to be that if you filed a notice of appearance in court, you were in for all purposes, and you really couldn't get out as an attorney. And then if someone ran out of money or they weren't able even at the start to afford an attorney, the attorney was still in the case, and it operated as a disincentive for an attorney to even get involved in the first instance. Now, with the rules change about 20 years ago, you can be involved in a limited scope fashion. So you enter an appearance in court that I'm only going to be involved in just these discrete aspects of the case, in just these narrow stages in the proceeding. And because that's all that my client, in effect, can afford. But it's the stage in the proceeding where you can have the most impact as an attorney and be most helpful. It's a great tool. I think the courts recognized the need for this, because if it was an all or nothing proposition, too often it was a nothing.
Yeah. And so give us an example. How would it work? What kind of situation an attorney would be hired just on limited scope basis?
So you obviously have to have that agreement with the,
of course,
and expectation with the client right at the start. And the best way to do that is to express right in writing in your fee agreement that the attorney is going to be involved in these aspects and is going to do this work. Be very clear about that, and that again, it's not ideal, but it's a way to help people with limited income. The individual who is being served by that attorney is going to have to self-help in certain instances, in certain stages as well, and do certain work as well, under some guidance with the attorney, but is going to have to be the hands-on practical force behind some of that work. And so it's a shared role between the attorney and the individual who's being helped. And you need to spell that out in writing, make that very clear, and then you need to make it very clear to the court when you're filing notices of appearance that I'm only involved in this stage and not in another stage. And when that stage passes, whatever it is, it may be at a hearing, giving an oral argument for a particular motion. You've given the oral argument, the motion is decided, you file a notice of withdrawal. I'm not going to be involved in maybe some subsequent activity in that case. I might get involved again a little bit later on, but then I have to notice a new appearance and then withdraw when that stage is over.
That's very interesting, and what a great tool for clients to use, because it goes back to affordability, because they can maybe afford that representation for a smaller amount. Before we finish up, I can't leave this interview without talking about technology. We talked about technology all the time, you know, and how it's impacting, has been impacting legal community, legal services for many years. But now with the advent, not really advent, AI has been around forever. Not forever, but for a long time already. But it's sort of with ChatGPT a couple of years ago, it really has everybody's more aware of it. Let's put it this way. Tell us what Justice Bridge is doing with technology, and also what are your thoughts on AI technology and how it will or may change access to justice, or ability of others to access justice.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking that question, because I love AI, and it gives us a great tool and a great opportunity to expand access to justice and to help folks. And it is, we've been utilizing it in ChatGPT for almost from the infancy, in a measured way. But basically, what it enables us to do, particularly when people post their own requests on our portal, on our website, ChatGPT will reword the request, make it sound a little bit more logical, flesh it out a little bit more, so that the attorney understands it when they're considering that request. But the client has the opportunity, in the first instance, or the would-be client, to look at that reworded suggestion and to adopt it and or edit it and then adopt it. What ChatGPT-4 will then enable them to do if they create an account on our platform is to answer additional questions that appear to be relevant beyond just our initial intake question format, either on our website or through an intern that may have taken the request by phone and posted it on our portal. But that additional asking of questions and follow-up, much like an attorney would do in the second interview or a third interview, is all very efficient and helps gather additional information from the client. The client or prospective client would be able to attach documents and photographs and other information, supply additional relevant pleadings that may have been filed if the case has already been brought in suit, so that an attorney can understand the case better and just engage with the platform at a time when it's convenient for them to do a lot of this discovery, initial groundwork that needs to be done. That saves the attorney an awful lot of time. The portal also enables the attorney, this was all from the client standpoint, but it enables the attorney in ways, because it will identify what legal issues appear to be raised. And it might even suggest some of the law that could be relevant to those legal issues. So it's efficient from the attorney's standpoint, not just in the facts that are gathered, but also in terms of arguments that could be raised, issues that are potentially generated in the law. So it's a great time saver. It helps folks be efficient on both ends. But there are guardrails in it, because the attorney who's reviewing it, the client who's reviewing it, have the opportunity to check and make sure that this is accurate.
Yeah, thank you. So the AI and technology is going to change legal profession, and we probably should have another show just to talk about that, because I think there is a lot happening in that field, and we just unfortunately ran out of time. So thank you so much, Attorney Len Zandrow, Executive Director of Justice Bridge. We will share the information how to find Justice Bridge. You can find it on the page somewhere below here. Someone will post. And thank you so much for watching. Till next time.